In 2029, after a failed general election, the vote was split 50-50 and no one could decide on anything. After a while, the country started seeing increasing amounts of protests. Over time, these protests started turning violent. They eventually turned into full-scale riots. The government sent out soldiers and police to quell the riots, but the police and soldiers joined forces with the rioters, demanding for a more certain future. The ever-weakening government declared martial law to finally put an end to all of this and secure peace. But this again failed. The government now had started to collapse and dissolve. A small growing faction in the far north of the country decided to take advantage of the situation and stage a coup of the now failed government. Within 2 weeks, they had full control of the country. At first, all seemed well and that it would all work out. They started mass public works projects to repair the damage done by the rioters and the constant fighting. But after a few months, things started going wrong. The new government had started severing all diplomatic ties to its once strongest allies. After a few more months, the United Nations sent a delegation to the country to try and restore relations, but shortly after arriving, the delegation mysteriously disappeared. It is later found out that they were kidnapped by the government and executed. After this news breaks, the protests then start again. But instead of just sending out the police, they send out the army, who are ordered to shoot to kill everyone who is involved in the protests, sending fear throughout the country. The leader of the government establishes a military dictatorship with him at the centre. A United States-led coalition declares it to be a failed state and declares war to restore democracy to the once great country. The government know they cannot stop the alliance, but they have one idea. They decide the only possible way they could defeat the coalition is to develop psychological weapons of war, but they must use their own people. They start gathering up people that they deem to be enemies of the state and deport them to small facilities far away from anyone. At these facilities, they are subjugated to constant torture and experiments in order to break them and find out what they fear the most. Among these people snatched away was a small girl, no older than 8. She had been experimented on for over 12 years and she was known only as Subject 101. For the past 12 years, Subject 101 has spent every day surrounded by the same 4 bland, bleak concrete walls, sat on a thin, hard mat where she was supposed to sleep. Every time someone walked past her door with their keys jangling, she expected to be taken away for more torture and experimentation. She had grown used to this and no longer feared it, to an extent that the next time she heard the jangling keys fumbling to unlock her cell, she didn't even look up to see who entered the room. She eventually looked up when a highly polished black leather shoe kicked her. "Hey! Look at me!" barked a rough but firm voice. 2 tall men in long white lab coats stood in front of her, one holding a syringe and the other handing him a bottle that he stuck the syringe in and drew out a dark grey liquid. The doctors and scientists who worked in this facility never wore name tags or addressed each other by name. This is so the test subjects never knew who was torturing them and to remain completely anonymous. The doctor holding the syringe bent down and grabbed her arm. She continued to just sit there and take whatever was coming her way. He jabbed the needle deep into her arm, injecting the liquid. He stood back up and the 2 doctors looked at each other and then looked back at her. The doctor who was holding the bottle asked, "Why is nothing happening? Shouldn't the process have started already?" The other doctor who hadn't taken his eyes off 101 looked amused and laughed. "It doesn't always happen straight away. Remember the other subjects we tried? They all died within seconds because the injection caused them to have a heart attack and died." He squats down and looks at her eye to eye. "So what makes you so special, Why haven't you just died?" He ponders to himself while rubbing his chin. He stands back. They both look at each other, then back down to her. It's almost like they're talking psychically to each other. "We will come back later." The identical doctors both say in unison as they walk out, locking the door behind them. As 101 sits there in silence, head rested up against the wall, she feels a small burning sensation slowly building in her arm where she was injected. The sensation quickly turns into an ever-growing pain. She starts to rub her arm where she was injected, but when she pulls her hand back, it's all wet and sticky. She rolls her sleeve up to see that her arm is slowly turning grey and black pus is oozing out from where she was injected. She starts to panic, but she has no time, for the pain is now unbearable, and she starts flailing around on the floor in pain, screaming and crying. She starts to bang her arm against the wall to get the burning pain to stop, but to no avail. The pain is now so great that she feels faint and passes out on the hard, cold concrete floor. She starts to bang her arm against the wall to get the burning pain to stop, but to no avail. When she finally comes round after God knows how long later, she finds herself in the corridor outside her room being dragged along the floor. She tries to put her arms down so she can stand up, but she can't move either of her arms. She looks down to see that she has been forced into a dirty old straitjacket. Starting to panic again, she looks up to see the same identical doctors walking a short distance behind her. Neither one of them looks down to acknowledge her, they just keep looking forward and moving in unison. They're identical, but they don't seem to be twins, she thinks to herself. Maybe they're also a product of the facility. Human cloning, perhaps? She quietly asks herself. After what felt like an hour of being dragged, she is forced into a small interview room and sat down on a metal chair. The security guard that was dragging her fixes a thick collar around her neck with 2 metal prongs sticking into her. The doctors sit opposite her with only a small wooden table in between them as a security guard chains her to her chair. She looks around to see that the room is completely featureless apart from a very obvious one-way mirror on the wall to her left. She looks puzzled at the mirror, wondering who is on the other side watching her. On the other side of the mirror stands a single man in a black suit with an earpiece watching them. The doctors both lean forward. The one on the left writes something in his notebook and takes his glasses off. "What we injected you with was a serum," he explains. "It is designed to enhance your brain powers and be able to let you move things with your mind. Some people might call it telekinesis." He gets up and walks round to her, leaning down so his face is right in her face. "Most people don't survive this long. With every subject we have injected before, the serum solidifies the blood before we have any chance to test them, starving their heart and brain of oxygen." He says this very calmly as he walks back to his chair. "But you are the only living subject we have for this project, so you are vital to the success of this," he explains very loudly as he sits down in his chair, looking right into 101's eyes. Yes. However, it doesn't matter how alive you are. The problem is that the ability has not yet manifested itself in you," the other doctor calmly says, who has up until now remained silent. 101 finally understands what is going on here and how she could escape this place. "So how are you going to make it work?" she asks the doctor. "You know what? I don't even care anymore. Just do what you want," she says as she rests her head on the table, looking away from the mirror. The doctors once again look at each other, seemingly talking psychically. The man behind the glass looks up from his notes and places them on the table next to him. Crossing his arms, he waits with bated breath to see what will happen next. One doctor stands up and walks to the wall. "We're going to show you some pictures," he says with a hint of malice in his voice as he turns the lights off. The second doctor picks up a small plastic box which turns out to be an old-fashioned slide projector, which he turns on, filling the room with that distinctive orange glow of an incandescent bulb. 101 was not used to this warm light, since the only light she knew was that sickly off-white that the flickering fluorescent tube in her cell emitted. The same doctor turned on the projector and loaded in a string of slides. 101 lifted her head up slightly to feel the warm glow on her face. "What are you going to show me?" she asked with naivety. "Just look," the doctor barks with a stern voice as he picks up the controller and presses the button to load in the first picture. 101 is delighted and horrified by what she sees. It's a picture of her family the day before she was kidnapped. She hasn't seen her family in over 12 years and thought them long since dead. He clicks the button again and the next picture is dated 2 days after she is kidnapped, and it shows her family all sat in their living room tied to chairs with black bags over their heads. 101 sits up watching with her mouth wide open. He clicks the button again and again, each picture getting more graphic and torturous than the last. Both doctors watch her. The one who is sat down is constantly writing in his notes of what's happening. 101 then turns to the doctors with a look of complete horror on her face as a single tear runs down her cheek. "What did you do to them?" she asks with a whimper in her voice. 101 then suddenly and violently bends back and starts flailing in pain once again, but since she is chained down, there is nothing she can do. She just sits there as the same burning pain that she felt in her cell builds and builds throughout her entire body, completely taking her over. "It's working," the doctor who was operating the projector says with glee as he drops the controller and watches her. The man behind the mirror uncrosses his arms and puts one hand on the glass, watching very closely. It's burning!" are the only words she can form. The burning pain that has now turned into a stabbing pain throbbing through her body has almost completely paralysed her. The doctor who is sitting down stands up so fast he knocks his chair over, slamming his hands on the table. "Yes! It's finally working! 10 years of constant tests and experiments, 10 years of failure, 10 years, and it's now finally working." 101 lets out a loud scream as the pain finally goes away and slumps down. A loud blast echoes throughout the room, followed by the sound of 101's chains falling to the floor. The doctors look at each other, but this time, instead of the blank, emotionless expression, they look completely shocked and don't know what to do. 101 slowly sits up and pulls her now free arms in front of her. She lifts one arm up and looks at her hand. "So this is the power you have given me." The doctors both still look shocked that she could have done this straight away after her ability manifested in her. Yes, and we believe that you could be the best weapon we have ever created," one doctor said, trying to convince her to join them. "I don't think so," she calmly says as she thrusts one arm towards the doctors, followed by the same loud blasting noise. The doctors are ripped out their seats and flown against the wall. A loud cracking sound fills the air as one of the doctor's spines shatters, killing him instantly. She turns to the one-way mirror and walks over to it. Putting one finger on the glass, she starts to tap it. After one tap, the glass splinters. After another, the crack grows, and after a third, the whole mirror shatters. She gets ready to attack the man in black behind the glass, but he is long since gone. The doctor who lived struggled to sit up. As soon as she sees him moving, she runs for the door, only to realise it's locked. She quickly remembers her new ability and holds her hand up to the lock. The same deafening blast reverberates through the small room as the door is ripped off its hinges and flies out into the corridor. The doctor fully stands up and sees her running out of the corridor. "I will give you one chance to come back!" 101 takes no notice and continues running. "Then you leave me no choice," he says to himself as he opens a small cupboard in the wall and presses a concealed button. He lets out a small sigh. What a pity. She could have been so great. Sirens blare out of speakers as 101 runs down a never-ending hallway full of other identical cells full of other test subjects. Every time she comes to a crossroad, she looks down to see another never-ending hallway. Eventually she comes to the end of one and sees two splitting paths. She starts to slow down as she hears boots running down towards her along the split paths. She comes to a stop as 20 armed guards dressed head to toe in black riot armour run round the corner and point their guns at her. A small smile creeps its way across 101's face as one of the guards opens their mouth and barks. "Ready! Aim! Fire!" They open a barrage of bullets towards her, but 101 just waves her hands and the hundreds of bullets stop in midair. The guards empty their magazines, firing at her. They all stand back in shock. 101 thrusts her hands towards the guards and the 400 bullets fly at them, hitting each and every one of them in the head, killing all of them. She continues to run down the corridor, looking over her shoulder at the carnage she has caused. After she has gone, the man in black comes out of one of the cells. He had watched the entire confrontation and squats down over the corpses. "Incredible. She is even more powerful than we thought." He stands up and looks down at the guards. "These disposables proved to be a good first test," he calmly says as he nudges one of them with his foot. After running for what feels like hours, she finally finds an exit to the surface and she starts to climb the 25 floors to freedom. When she finally gets to the surface, she finds that the facility was hidden by nothing more than an old abandoned house with a small entrance in the basement down to the testing chambers and cells. She climbs the basement stairs to see that no one is guarding the entrance. They obviously thought that security was too good for people to escape from, she thought to herself. She peeks through a hole in the wall that once held the front door and looks to see if anyone is watching her and slowly moves through and starts to run away. Wait! 101, please wait! She stops dead in her tracks and turns to look behind her to see that the doctor that had survived had followed her to the surface. What do you want? Why can't you just leave me alone and let me go? She pleads with him. And where would you go? The country is dead, surrounded by enemies that want to see us become nothing more than smoke and ash. Look around you and see what they have already done. "101 looks around her to see a hellscape of bomb craters everywhere. The remains of houses crumbled and smouldering after an air raid. She looks up to see a small formation of bombers screeching through the air. 101, get down! He grabs her and runs to a nearby smouldering shed as the bombs start to fall. The bombers pass and he peeks his head out of the shed to see if they can come out. They're getting close. They obviously know where we are, he says as he brushes himself off and looks around. 101 crawls out of the shed to see the fire and destruction left by the bombers. You see? This is why we do what we do here. We need to create weapons to use against them. Not just guns and bombs, but human weapons. Which is why we brought you here. So we could turn you into a weapon to finally win this war. So please, come back with me and help us. Why the hell would I want to go back with you? She shouts at him. Why the hell would I want to go back to that life? From the door of the abandoned house, the man in the black suit emerges and watches from a distance. Look, 101, I saw what you did to those guards back there, and that's amazing. It means you're getting stronger. 101 looks down at her hands. Did I really kill all those guards with just this new power? She asked herself. You could have stopped those bombs too, and turned them back to the planes if I didn't grab you so quickly. Please come back with me and I can promise you, you won't go back to that cell and there will be no more experiments. We will only help you get stronger, so come back and help us, he pleads with her again. 101 thinks about it for a few seconds. She clenches her hands and calmly says, No, I don't think I will. I wasn't asking you to come back. I was telling you to come back, he arrogantly explains. You don't seem to understand. You have given me this power and I've tasted freedom, and I like it, and you are not going to get in my way. Saying this, 101 slowly lifts her arm up to her chest and slashes it down through the air, followed by the sound of the doctor coughing up blood. His intestines fall out onto the mud with a massive gash in his abdomen. The doctor coughs up some more blood and falls to the ground dead. 101 turns on her heel and continues to run away. The man in black who had seen all of this started to follow her far behind as to not be noticed. After a few kilometres running, 101 stops at a small river to catch her breath. She kneels down to scoop up some water to drink, but is shocked when she hears a branch snap on the other side of the river. She quickly stands up to see the man in black standing on the other side of the river. She starts to run while keeping her eyes fixed on him, but as soon as she looks away to look in front of her to where she is running, she runs into the man's chest. The man had somehow teleported in front of her. She looked back to see if there were two of them, but no, only this one man in front of her. She steps back a few paces and just watches him as he stands there. He drops something out of his sleeve and starts to lift his arm, revealing a small remote control. 101 realises that she is still wearing the thick collar fixed around her neck and fumbles with the strap, trying to release herself from its tight grip. As she struggles with the strap, the man presses a button on the remote and a short electric shock goes from the collar down the two metal pins and into her neck. She staggers back a few steps in pain but remains standing. She quickly remembers her new powers and tries to kill him just like she had killed the doctor, but nothing happens. The man finally breaks the silence. That shock you felt killed the ability we gave you. You are nothing, and you are now useless, he explains to her. He starts to walk closer to 101. How far did you think you could run? Did you think we had no way of tracking you, of controlling you, of taking away the power which we granted you? 101 doesn't know what to say. She was so close to escaping for good, and now she has had her one key to freedom taken away. The man raises his arm and presses the button again. This time the pain is 20 times worse. 101 screams and falls to the ground, dazed but still conscious. He walks up to her body, standing over her, turning a switch on the remote control as he calmly says, "You have no idea how powerful we truly are. The whole point of this test was to see if you could escape, and to see the extent of that power. Those airplanes you saw in the sky were just projections, and those bombs were mines below the ground." He presses the button again, and this time the pain is so great that she is paralysed and passes out.